This will be the last thing we do. Jon Patton, again, come on.
Yeah. Well, a couple of elements to it. I'm talking about that scene we saw on the boundary.
Yep.
First of all, I know it's an emotional sport, and here's a guy that's had all those knee injuries. Apparently, missed a week because he poured boiling oil on himself or dropped boiling oil. In other words, he can't take a bloody break. But the reaction, I was very sad myself because I thought he's done his knee again. So interesting reaction to what is being described as a minor strain. But what did you make of him pushing away the club doctor? I don't know. It was all quite interesting to me.
Okay, no, I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because I did mean to say something about that. Look, the thing with the doctor, I think Jonathan Brown said, that's not a rare thing. Maybe the doctor talked him into playing. Maybe the doctor said the wrong thing at the wrong time, So I didn't read too much into that. I would like to say this, though, about the visible distress on the bench. Now, I saw it and I was moved by it and I felt for him. To your point, yeah, I mean, it was a hamstring injury, but clearly, and Nick Riewoldt, I thought, articulated this pretty well. It's clearly...
Well, he should. He's one of the game's most famous bench crybabies of all time.
You're not being serious here, eh?
Well, the only ones we can think of in recent history are James Hird and Nick Riewoldt, so he is famous.
Finey, you can't profess to be sensitive to mental health issues and then sort of, dump shit on people because they're crying on the bench. Now, this
That's
guy...
not a mental health issue. Hang on. Whoa.
No,
an
hang
emotional
on.
response to being injured or playing injured or the navicular that Hird had, that's mental health is... There's a...
All right, okay.
I'm sensitive to... Hang on, you put it on to me. It's a pretty serious question.
No, well, you asked me the question, so let me answer it, right? Okay, mental health is the wrong choice of words. But if we're going to stigmatise blokes for crying because they're upset, that, to me, sends an anti-mental health message. Now, I don't think any less of him because he cried on the bench. This is a guy whose whole career has been injury-plagued. He just gets himself over a knee, caused him to miss a whole year, then has a ridiculous sort of accident at home, misses again, then he gets out there and does a hammy. He's had enough. He cried. I'll tell you.
Who's stigmatising it? I made it. The only thing I did was call...
You just called him a crybaby. That's stigmatising it.
All right, that's all right. In politically correct 2020, that's going over the top. But
saying politically correct 2020 is also stigmatising it, Finey.
No, I'm saying, all right, and take away the term crybaby. All right, I will say that Nick Riewoldt is one of the game's most famous bench criers. All right, I won't call him a crybaby, but he cried when he was on the bench, as did James Hird, and now Jon Patton. I'm not stigmatising it. I'm just pointing out that those three players did that. A very outward show of emotion. Good thing, bad thing, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that Nick Riewoldt is well placed to talk about it because he did it. Take away the term crybaby, that does stigmatise it.
Yeah, but what weren't you, before that, weren't you implying that you thought it was a bit soft, Jonathan Patton was crying?
No. I said I was surprised that it wasn't a more serious injury.
Because he was crying.
But I guess that speaks to, and I said that the wretched run that he's had, even down to dropping oil on himself. And, it was interesting that even a minor injury now is, and I'm watching it I've got the replay in front of me, and I'm watching it as we speak. Very, very emotional for him that he's really come to a point in his career. And I think the pressures are also, it's not just his, the amount of injuries, it's also the fact that he's had a slow start, to say the least, to his time at Hawthorn. All that stuff can really build up, and nothing wrong that it gets shown. But I think it gives you an idea of how much pressure John is putting on himself, not only to play for Hawthorn, but to perform for Hawthorn. It's an insight into, the pressures of the modern footballer. I shouldn't have called Riewoldt a crybaby because that does stigmatise it, but it was interesting that Riewoldt was on hand to talk about it, given that very few players have been through that, and he's one of them.
All right. Well, the point I wanted to make was this. They were visually gripping scenes. What I knew straight away would happen, and clearly is now happening again because you're watching it, is those scenes are going to be replayed ad nauseum. And I'll make the same point about that I made about that podcast the AFL now hosts the last time I cried, which is, you can't on the one, and I'm not coming at you here, right? You can't on the one hand say, it's healthy for men to express their emotions, and then we take that footage and replay it 500 times. Like, isn't this amazing? A footballer is on the bench crying. Well, it's not amazing. Men cry. Men should cry. I'm a crier. I cry a lot. I cry about happy stuff. I cry about sad stuff. I'm not embarrassed by it. If we're going to be fair dinkum about allowing men to express their emotions and not being these pent up, bundles of rage and frustration, we should accept that men cry. And what I would really like to see is people say, okay, well, gee, he's distressed, and move on. But I bet that gets dragged up again and again and again for the rest of his career, if he's lucky enough to have a career. That's the point I'm making. It really does give me the shits, to be honest, because we keep talking this stuff about allowing men to express their softer, more sensitive sides. And then when it happens, we either subtly or outwardly absolutely can them for it. And I don't think we can really take these things seriously until we accept, until we walk the walk, not just talk the talk. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I add, and well put, eloquent, can I add something?
Yep.
I'm not a crier, and I sort of find sometimes that, again, in an ever-changing world, that men who can cry are considered to be more in touch with their emotional side, have a higher emotional IQ and sensitivity, because they are able to express that form of, and as you said, not only sorrow, but sometimes happiness. I don't cry, and that has sometimes been used by people very close to me, I imagine, by family, close family, as evidence of my lack of emotion and lack of caring and lack of empathy. And that's bloody unfair, because I'm simply not a crier. That's funny that, how can you be so cold and whatever? I can feel immense sadness, but I just don't. I'm not a huge crier. It's funny. Yeah, there are times where I felt this occasion, this moment, demands tears, and I'm talking about, I'll be, very deep, very honest here. I'm talking about the passing of my own father and the funeral. I was incredibly sad, but I didn't cry, and I wish I could cry sometimes.
Yeah, well, funny you mention that, because so it depends on the situation. I mean, I saw my brother and my father both die. I watched them die. I was at their funerals. I did their eulogies. They are situations where you would expect me to cry. I didn't cry because I think I felt like I had to keep it together. But I cry. I'm more likely to cry at moments a lot of people wouldn't. I mean, it's people's psyches and makeups are different. Anyway, I think we've both sort of articulated our case there, but I'll just say that again. I think if we're fair to come about men being able to express their emotions, we shouldn't react to what Jonathan Patton did on the bench tonight like it's something out of the ordinary that needs to be replayed 500 times. That's all.